Do you have any questions?
Okay. No, this is my first time being on this side. So I do podcasts for work, but I'm on the other side where I'm coaching lawyers on how to do them. So I've never been in the hot seat before. So
Oh, really?
I'm a little nervous. Now I know how they feel. So
Well, I promise it won't be too scary. I'm a little mean, but I'm not too mean.
okay. I can handle a little.
A little. Perfect. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Same Page. If you don't already know me, I'm your host, Jenna Clausen, lover of books, sympathizer of book-to-movie adaptations, and owner of an embarrassingly long TBR list. Each month, I'll be bringing on a bookish friend or two to discuss some of our current and favorite books, as well as a few recent binge watches, and to share in a buddy read. Grab a drink, join the discussion, and let's find out if we're on the same page. My guest today is my friend Arianna, although she's better known on Bookstagram as Arianna Reads. In addition to her almost 2 years and 5,000 followers there, Arianna leads the Read Can Lit Book Club, where readers from across the globe get together each month to read and discuss books of all genres written by Canadian authors. You can find all of her social media information, as well as where to follow her, down in the show notes. And with that, let's jump on into the episode. Welcome to The Same Page. Thank you for coming on and talking books with me.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Your sweatshirt is very cute. I have been looking at it basically since you joined the Zoom call.
Amazon.
Oh God, I love Amazon. And especially we were just talking about everything in the world being the way that it is. Amazon is one of the only joys in life right now.
Yep. It has been a savior. I did a serious loungewear haul at the beginning of when all of this happened.
I'm
I didn't really
sure.
have anything comfortable to wear.
Have you been working from home and stuff too? So you're needing like nice loungewear?
Yeah, it'll be almost a year at the beginning of March. I haven't been in the office, and I went from wearing skirt suits and pantyhose. So
right.
I don't know if I can go back to that.
Yeah, that's the thing. Even if tomorrow the world went back to normal, like the only time that I put jeans on is for recording the podcast. And so it's once a week, and the rest of the time I'm in leggings and sweats. And it's just it's going to be tough, people having to go back to like business casual or business formal, anything like that. It's going to be a rough transition back into a normal workplace.
I don't think I don't think I'm prepared yet.
No. And everyone's probably gained like 30 pounds or something in quarantine. So we're all going to have to rebuy all of our work clothes. It's going to be a process.
It sure is.
Well, before we dive in, I give a little bit of information on the book that we're going to discuss next week. Do you want to start us off with what you're drinking?
So, do you want me to what I'm drinking right now?
Yeah.
Or what I'll be drinking next week? So right now I'm being healthy. I have an AHA peach and honey sparkling water.
Nice.
Because this weekend was not healthy with Valentine's Day and a long weekend. So I had a little bit of bubbly that got on the Peloton.
They don't count. It's kind of like people say vacation calories don't count. I feel like long weekend is just the smaller scale version of vacation calories.
Totally. So got in the Peloton before this and figured I should have some sparkling water. And then I like this AHA because it makes me sing that song Take On Me in my head when I'm drinking it. So
oh God.
Little 80s
humming
classic.
that song the entire time we're recording now. So thank you for that.
Sorry, not sorry.
Peach and honey sounds delicious.
It's really good. I've been really into the sparkling water, so exploring different kinds, trying to balance the wine and sparkling wine consumption. But
yeah, God, again, especially during quarantine. My husband loves sparkling waters, and he will have like 4 a day. If he's just not paying attention, he'll just drink them all the time. And I'm like, yeah, I should start doing that. But I never do. And so every once in a while, when I want a drink after dinner, whatever, he will, instead of making me a vodka tonic, he'll make me a vodka and sparkling water.
Yum.
It's really good. It's
I'll have to
basically
try that.
just a flavored vodka tonic.
Yeah,
Highly
because I really like
recommend.
the sparkling seltzers, like White Claws and stuff. But I
Mm-hmm.
haven't tried to fashion my own. Maybe
Those are pretty
it's
good
next on
too.
the list.
This whole beginning is going to make me sound like an alcoholic, but we also sometimes, if we have like a white wine that we don't really like on its own, or we get a really cheap white wine or something, you can mix it with some of the seltzers, the Trulies and stuff that are too sweet on their own. You can mix them and make like a spritzer. It's very good.
Okay, I'm totally going to be doing that. I'm
We look over,
excited.
she's taking notes.
Yeah.
Speaking of Amazon, if I can reach it, I have a huge amount of tea because, as we were talking about before we started, my husband and I just had a very big brunch, and I'm very tired, and I need lots of caffeine. So I have about 2 refills in here. But it is a tropical green tea with a cat hair in it. And I ran out after I had this same tea recording last week's episode, and I ran out and I told my husband I was so sad, and he found it on Amazon in a 1-pound bag. So now I'm going to be drinking a lot of this green tea. Let me reach behind me here and grab the book. So this next week, I'm not going to go too deep into it because we'll do like deep dive next week. But this next week, we are going to be reading Shipped by Angie Hockman. See if it'll focus here. Maybe not.
Yep.
But for people on the YouTubes, this is what it looks like. Super cute little like beachy vacation looking cover. Publisher is Gallery Books, copyright year 2021, and this paperback copy that I have is 321 pages. Do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about why you chose this book?
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you that know me and are watching this, because I'm going to make everyone I know watch this, you know that
that's what I do.
Read a ton of thrillers and dark stuff and serious stuff. But I also really, really love rom-coms. Emphasis on the calm part of the rom. I need the calm there to balance it. I'm not into all the really steamy
You're
stuff,
not
but
like a bodice ripper type person.
No, but when there's that comedy, it really works for me. So being February, I wanted to make sure I had some romance reads for Valentine's.
At least one or two.
At least one that's not about serial killers or murder, things like that, to balance it out and balance out my TV, which is also primarily serial killers, murderers, plus a rewatch of Dawson's Creek right now.
Throwback.
Yes. So this one really jumped out to me. One of my friends read it and loved it. And it had the whole enemies to lovers, which I really love. And kind of the synopsis reminded me of one of those 2000s rom-coms, like 27 Dresses style or something like that.
Very that.
And that's what I was in the mood for. So I was excited to pick it up and read with you.
Yeah, it sounds like a really fun, kind of light February read, which is nice, especially after the book that we discussed last week was really tense and really kind of graphic. And so I'm ready for something a little bit more just fun. You did remind me when you were talking about it that I did not read the back cover, which I usually do. I'm fired, so I'm going to do that really quickly. And then we will jump into getting to know you.
Perfect.
So it says, The Unhoneymooners meets the hating game in this clever romantic comedy following a marketing manager who is forced to go on a cruise with her arch nemesis when they're up for the same promotion, which I already love.
Right, and it's travel, which we can't do right now. So yeah. Another fun element.
We've got to get the travel somewhere, and it's only through media. Yeah. It's frustrating. Between classes for her MBA and her job at a cruise line, Marketing manager Henley Evans barely has time for herself, but when she's shortlisted for her dream promotion, all her sacrifices finally seem worth it. The only problem? I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm going to have to look this up. This guy, the offsite social media manager and the bane of her existence, is also up for the promotion. Although they've never met in person, their epic email battles are the stuff of legend. Their boss takes each of them with a drafting proposal on boosting bookings in the Galapagos. Best proposal wins the promotion. There's just one catch. They have to go on a company cruise to the Galapagos Islands together. But when they meet on the ship, Henley is shocked to discover that Graham?
Graham.
I'm
Graham.
going to go with Graham. Okay.
It's definitely Graham.
Perfect. So for anyone
Unique
who doesn't
spelling.
have the book in front of them, it's spelled Graeme. So I'm like, I'm too tired for that to make sense in my brain. Henley is shocked to discover that Graham is nothing like she imagined. And soon the line between liking and loathing is thinner than a postcard. With her career dreams in sight and a growing attraction to the competition, Henley begins questioning her life choices. Because what's the point of working all the time if you never actually live? I love that.
Can totally relate to that.
Yeah, truly. I feel like there's always the one character in the rom-coms that never leaves the office. And a lot of the time it's the guy, like it's the love interest. So I like when it's the main character. I don't know. So jumping into getting to know you as a reader a little bit, I know you read a lot of thrillers. Do you have any other like favorite genres or a go-to, maybe specific subgenre in thrillers, anything like that?
Absolutely. So I read really across a lot of genres. So thrillers are my go-to and kind of my comfort reading, which is really weird. Sounds really weird, but I love them because they really get me out of my own head.
Sure.
And into the story. And I use reading as a way to relax and decompress from work and stress and things like that. I also am really big in literary fiction, historical fiction, memoirs. So really everything across the board. I've just dabbled into fantasy. So I'm not totally there yet. I have all my A Court of Rose. I'm probably messing all that up. I have the first 3. I haven't dug into them yet. But Bookstagram made me do it.
Oh, truly. That was one of for the podcast, January reads was the first one. Because I knew I needed an excuse to finally read it. So I'm with you. Bookstagram kind of bullied me into it a little bit.
Absolutely. And then one thing that's also really important to me is supporting Canadian literature. So I do run a Read Canlit book club. It's not just for Canadians. We do have some Americans that join. And it's really just showing, I think there's a perception of what Canadian literature is that's so not true. If you look at the book, The Push, that just came out, that's everywhere, that's Canlit. So really just trying to promote our local authors. They don't always get that publicity.
Sure.
And show people the wide variety of voices that we have here in Canada.
I love that. What are some of your favorite reads that you've read through that book club?
Oh my gosh, we just read for January a book called Greenwood by Michael Christie. And it may be, I know it's really early to say this, it's definitely going to be a top 20, maybe top 10 read. And I'd had it for over a year. I got it in a book box and the description didn't really do too much for me. I was like, oh, it sounds good, important, but I didn't really want to dive into it, and it won the vote. And it is just such a beautiful, epic story. It takes place in Canada, which doesn't always happen. A lot of times writers are convinced to set their stories outside of Canada, so it's a little more relatable to a North American audience. And it's just this epic family saga that ties into environmentalism. And I could do a whole podcast about that. And Michael was kind enough to join us for a Zoom, and just hearing his passion even made us even more excited about the book. And he was just...
I love that. Getting to talk to authors about their books is the most fun.
It's so cool. It doesn't get old. Never will.
It doesn't, no. And it's one thing where I feel like even if going into the conversation you didn't love the book, like it wouldn't have been one of your top 10 or whatever, getting to hear them talk about their book and something that they're so passionate about always makes me love it a little bit more.
Totally. And we went in loving it, and then it went from like 10 to earth shattering for everyone. So yeah, that is a really big standout. And even the book, it's the most sustainable book published by a major publisher. So it's the detail and just the physical copy of it is so cool as well.
That's awesome. I'll have to take a look at that one. It sounds really interesting. So you were talking about maybe being a little early to pick favorite reads for this year, but do you have any favorite reads from 2020?
I am really bad at picking favorites of anything. But I'll talk, but I definitely have some books that I absolutely positively loved. In the thriller realm, Wendy Walker, her books are just absolutely amazing. I'm seeing you started it behind you. I loved that one as well. But
yeah.
Don't Look Back by Wendy Walker was a favorite of mine as well. The Girl with the Louding Voice was phenomenal.
I really want to read that one.
Totally recommend it. It's beautiful. The writing, the storytelling, the world that's created there, it's definitely a top one. I feel like I could probably go on and on.
Yeah, I'm always too indecisive.
I know. I really struggle with it. I didn't actually even post any top reads because whenever I put a list together, I'm like, oh, but what about this one? What about that one?
Right, and then you almost feel guilty leaving them off, and you're like, no, but my babies.
That's exactly how I feel. And I'm so lucky that I have so many great reads. I feel so fortunate that it's a good problem to have when it's hard to narrow it down.
In my bullet journal, I always do a book bracket to try and force myself to pick a favorite read, or at least the ones that I would pick from. So I have a list of them. And the last couple of years, I've just had one book from each month. And then I was sitting down with my husband and having a very hard time. And I was like, oh, but I read these two in the same month. And how am I going to pick? I remember October, I read Verity and Cemetery Boys. And I was like, how am I going to choose one of these? And so this year I had to make a much bigger bracket. So I have room for 2 books per month. And it takes up a full 2 pages in my bullet journal now.
That's so hard. I mean, I haven't Verity, whoa, mind blowing, loved it. I haven't read Cemetery Boys, but I've heard it's fantastic. But it's also like, how do you, sometimes for me, it's a 5-star rom-com read. What I want from that is different than a 5-star historical fiction read. So I feel like sometimes it's hard to compare those things there. And I'm such a mood reader. I really have a hard time sticking to my TBR as much as I try. I really am. Like, I'll put something down and need to pick something up just based on what mood I'm in, what kind of reading experience I need at that time.
Yeah. People always laugh at me when I post my TBR pages on Instagram. I forgot what that social media platform that I spend all of my time on was called for just a second there, on Instagram, because there's 100 books on it. And I'm like, okay, but here's the thing. I know that there's no chance I'm going to read all of those, but I know that there's books on this list for every mood I could possibly be in. And I can pick, and I can still technically be following my list.
I like that approach.
It's so nice, but every month I have people comment like, whoa, that's so many books. And I'm like, yeah, I read 7 books last month. I'm not going to read this many books. I don't know, man. Especially February, with it being such a short month.
Yeah, it's a weird reading month, and I find.
It is. I've only finished, I think, 2 books this month. It's been a long one. I don't know. Yeah, for such a short month, it's been a long couple weeks. So favorite reads of 2020. Do you have any like most anticipated 2021 releases?
I'm really excited for Hannah Mary McKinnon's new thriller, You'll Remember Me. Sister Dear was a favorite of mine last year. She's also Canadian. And I've had a chance to meet her back when we used to be able to go to in-person book events.
Right, when we could leave the house.
We could leave the house. So super excited to be reading that. I'm going to be reading it soon. It's out in May. So that's a top one for me. 6 Weeks to Live, Catherine McKenzie, another Canadian thriller writer. So super excited for that. That's actually going to be our book club's May pick because it comes out in April. Those are the ones that are popping to the top of my head right now. So I'm obviously in the mood for some thrillers right now because that's what's jumping up. But I know there's a
good thing we're reading a frilly rom-com then.
Totally. I am in the rom-com area. I'm super excited for Accidentally Engaged. That's coming out. Yeah.
Everyone's been posting their arcs of that, and I'm like,
I just got a NetGalley, so I'm excited. So I'm gonna dig into that. So in the rom-com area, I'm super excited for that.
I need to catch up on some reviews for NetGalley first.
Me too.
I think everyone's looking at me and they're like, of course we're not going to approve you for things right now. Look at your numbers.
I know, it's a never-ending battle because when I'm on there reviewing, that's when you see other books you want. And it's so easy just to click.
It's honestly harder not to.
It really is.
Request books.
You should be able to like turn off the request button so you can go in there and review and
put like a parental control on it. Like
I need
no books until you get to 60%.
Yeah. I'm trying to get to 50 right now.
I know. What was I? The last time I looked, I was at, I want to say like 51%. But that was a while ago. Sometimes I don't look because it makes me sad.
Yeah. I was at 44 and then I read and reviewed a few over the weekend, but then of course I got approved. So nothing changed.
Yeah, that happens. It's the worst.
Good.
And it's one thing when I have a physical book like sitting on my shelf or sitting on my book cart and I can see it and I can mentally be like, oh, because I see this, I know I need to read this still.
Yeah.
And then they're all on my Kindle and it's just, it's so easy to forget that they're there.
It's so easy. And I have a Kindle and a Kobo because Canada. So you can't access the library on a Kindle here.
Oh,
so
interesting.
Yeah, so Libby, all those apps, they only work on Kobos in Canada. So I only had a Kobo for the longest time, but then I started getting into NetGalleys and I found I wasn't reading them on my tablet because it was annoying and they expired really fast.
They did.
And the screen wasn't great in theory. So I finally invested in a Kindle as well, primarily for NetGalleys. But now I have these two devices, so I'm even more distracted about what's on what. I'm like, I don't know what's on what.
Right. When you travel, do you have to take both with you?
I actually usually do. I used to travel a lot for work back in the day, when travel was a thing.
Yeah.
So I would usually bring both and my tablet to watch stuff on, plus physical books. I'm not a light packer.
I'm not either.
Even like
I was going to say my husband
matter.
always makes faces at me as we're like walking through the airport, again, back when travel wasn't figment of our imagination. And we'd be walking through the airport and I'd be like, oh, babe, my backpack, like my carry-on is so heavy. Why do I always do this? Because it'll have my laptop in it so that I can do blog stuff if I need to, or like shop stuff for my Etsy. I'll have my Kindle and all of my chargers, and then I will have at least 3 physical books. He's like, yeah, I wonder why my back always hurts. Right.
You're going somewhere, you need the photos.
Exactly. Thank you. Someone understands. And a lot of the time it's me going back home to Washington where my family is and like visiting my parents or whatever. And going from the desert to Washington State, the most beautiful green place in the world. Apparently I'm missing the West Coast a bit. I have an Oregon shirt and a Seattle mug today. But going to this beautiful place, I'm like, well, I have to take all of these books that have trees on the covers so that I can take pictures where it makes sense.
Absolutely. It's like I can totally pack just a carry-on when it comes to all my other needs, but then I'll have like a giant bag just of books as my
the rolling bag that you check is all books. Yeah. So what are you reading right now? Do you want to tell us like your last read, your current read, and your next read? I know you said you're a bit of a mood reader, but
yeah. So I just finished a book this morning, Dark Horses. It comes out tomorrow. It was really, really, really heavy. A little similar to my Dark Vanessa. So lots of trigger warnings there. With this, it's not an easy read. It does deal with incest and sexual abuse and grooming. I'm really glad I read it, but it has taken a lot out of me, and I haven't been able to put my review together yet because I need to take some time to decompress and articulate what I'm thinking there. So that was this morning. So I think I'm going to start accidentally engaged this afternoon.
I'm so
or I
jealous.
guess tonight, as a bit of a palate cleanser. And then I'm going to tackle a NetGalley. Don't know which one it's going to be yet, but I'm going to jump into that. And I'm also reading. I read multiple books at once. So I'm also reading The Pull of the Stars by Emma Donoghue.
Nice.
So that's a book club pick for February. So I need to get on that. Taking me a little bit longer to get into the writing. So there's no quotation marks. So it always takes me a little bit of time to adjust. To that, I'm in that point where I'm into it now. So I'll probably see it, but it's also serious. So I'll see where the evening takes me. But
that's fair. Yeah, I'm really bad about reading multiple books. Usually I stick to one book per medium at a time. So like I'll have a physical book, an ebook, and an audiobook. But sometimes I'm not in the mood for any of those. And so I pick up a different one. And I try really hard not to do that because I feel so guilty. It's like I'm cheating on the books that I'm already reading, but I just, I'm very bad about it.
I'm so bad. I try to stick to one per genre. I throw medium out of the window, but try not to read 2 thrillers at once because then I start to get confused.
Yeah.
Or 2 historical fiction at once.
Oh gosh, talk about confusing. I'm reading 2 Regency romances right now. My husband's fault. He bought me the Bridgerton books for Valentine's Day.
Okay, that's a great present. I haven't dived into them yet, but I have some friends who absolutely swear by them. I love that time period. So I think I'm going to have to dig in. I'm excited.
I'm very excited. I only got like 20 pages in before I passed out yesterday. But yeah.
And then I got some book mail too. So I also have a stack of books that I need to look at here. So my next read is a mystery. Who knows?
That's fair. We'll see which one you feel like you need to finish first. And then you'll start that one first. I made the mistake of, so I have a monthly buddy read that I have decided to lead for 2021, where I'm like reading classics that either I haven't read since I was like 14, 15, or that we didn't read in my high school. So like I never read them. And I always in my stories put 2 options and have people vote on them. And so people voted and one of them won. And then nobody signed up for it. So I was like, okay, people tell me if you want to be in this. Otherwise, I'm going to do this other one instead because people also voted for that one. So maybe they'll join that one. And then people were like, I'll do both, actually. Yeah. And so now I just have 2. And so I haven't started either of them yet.
What are they?
So one is the Scarlet Letter.
Okay.
which I have not read. And then the other one is Emma, which is at least a reread for me. Which that was the one that's like, if no one joins the Scarlet Letter, like that's fine. Y'all voted for it. But if no one joins, I will do Emma because that's a more of a fun Valentine's Day read anyway. But yeah, so I have to probably start those in the next couple
Probably a
days.
good idea. I read the Scarlet Letter in school, but oh my gosh, that was probably high school. So that was a long, long time ago.
Yeah, we didn't read that one in high scholl for some reason. I'm not quite sure why, but it's pretty short at least. I want to say it's only 200 something pages.
Yeah, it's not one of the
It's
really
not one of the like
intimidating
epics.
ones. Yeah.
So we've talked about favorite genres, favorite reads. Are you someone that like sets reading goals for the year?
Yes-ish. I feel like my answer is always kind of, not really. I set more, I'm not really numbers focused.
Mhm.
I'm really focused on making sure that I'm reading consciously and paying attention to the books I'm reading. As I'm saying, I'm such a mood reader. I am still at the same time making sure that the stuff that's around me, that I am being conscious of what I'm consuming. And I have goals from that perspective.
Sure.
As more so than I want to read 200 books this year. I'd rather read quality over quantity. And sometimes those important reads they take longer to read.
Yeah.
I read The Yellow Wife as part of a read along last week, and it is going to be one of my top books this year for sure.
I've heard really good things about that one.
Yeah, it's actually in front of me right now because I still haven't been able to do my review yet.
God, the cover is gorgeous too.
The cover is stunning, and even just the material, it's absolutely fantastic. And I'm still struggling to put my words together on it. But it is phenomenal. But I can read a thriller in an afternoon, and I read this over 7 days because I was digesting it in pieces. So
I remember last year I read The Hate You Give for the first time, and it's technically a YA book. And so I picked it up and I was like, this will probably be a really quick read. I'll like read it in a day or two, depending on how much time I'm like putting towards reading it. And it took me about a week and a half, 2 weeks to read just because there was so much happening and so much going on. Yeah, I definitely feel that. I feel like sometimes it feels like you're doing a book a disservice if you try and get through it too quickly.
Totally. And with this one, that was actually, I put all my other books aside. That's probably why I'm super behind on some other things, because I didn't feel like reading something else. I didn't want to get out of the story and out of the world. And I totally recommend it. And I just need to get my thoughts together and how to articulate the experience of the book. But it's just beautiful. Everyone read it.
Well, I'm excited to read your review. Like I said, I've heard amazing things about that one. That's one that this week specifically, I feel like, but the past couple weeks, you can't really scroll through Instagram. I almost said Facebook. Why do I keep forgetting what Instagram is called? You can't really scroll through Instagram without seeing that one right now. It is everywhere, and everyone's saying really great things about it. So that's definitely on my list once I catch up with a couple things I already have in my home.
Yeah, it's all so deserved, and it's sometimes Bookstagram jumps on books and they take over, and you're like, oh, that was it? This is not one of them. This is one where I don't think any of us can do it justice in an Instagram post.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's getting out there and more people will read it is fantastic.
So what was the last book that Bookstagram kind of convinced you to read that was a little bit of a letdown? Maybe didn't live up to all the hype?
Ooh, good question. I'm trying to think what Bookstagram has made me read that I didn't like.
For me, I feel like the last one was Leave the World Behind.
I saw that everywhere. I haven't read it, but I did hear really mixed things about it.
Yeah. I don't remember the author's name off the top of my head, but I got it on audio from Libro FM, and everyone was talking about how amazing it was. And it was a bit strange for me. And I mean, it's about a pandemic and came out during a pandemic, which takes a long time to write books and get them published, so that wasn't planned probably, but it was a lot.
I'm trying to think. I read The Divines recently. That Bookster I wouldn't have read if it wasn't for Bookstagram. I love books set at boarding schools or schools. The Secret History is one of my favorites. And this one was a little bit of a letdown. The cover was gorgeous, and like the synopsis, I was like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be a favorite read. But it was fine, but it wasn't.
It just wasn't everything you were hoping for.
It was the ending mostly, so I won't say
why.
Oh
yeah, that kills me when you're enjoying a book and then you get to the last like 100 pages and you're just like, oh, okay.
I'm so glad I read it. I think I'm at the point where I'm very lucky that I'm choosing, but I'm not reading stuff that I really don't like, which is great because there's so many books, so little time. So I think I've gotten to the point where I'm able to pick stuff that whether they are going to have that impact like Yellow Wife or be a quick thriller that gets my mind off what's going on, but I'll never think about again. Those all serve their own purposes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's hard for me not to finish a book. I think it goes back to my undergrad English major days where you really did have to finish everything.
Yeah.
But I really am reading is such a release for me right now and a way to relieve stress and tension.
Yeah.
That
we all have tons of that going on.
Yeah. So I am trying to be more kind to myself and put books down if it's not the right time. And sometimes it's just not the right time for me. Personally, a subject may hit too close to home and I just don't have the capacity to add that on right now. And we're super privileged that I'm super privileged that I can put the book down and walk out of that world. That's not the case for everyone. So I don't take that for granted at all. But there's so many wonderful books out there and so many ways to learn and experience. It's just we're so lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I have only a couple more questions.
Okay.
So what was your last either book or like book series that you just could not put down, completely binged through?
Good. I'm like looking around at my bookshelves right now.
I do that sometimes too. I'll look behind me like, what do I have? What are books?
So series-wise, Lars Kepler, Nordic Noir.
Okay.
Can't put them down. The latest one came out last December, Lazarus, and it was so good. And one of my friends, Sonica, the Reading Beauty, she hosted a reading of all the books in advance of it. I'd already read them, but I hadn't read them with anyone because I read them before Bookstagram. Shocking.
Yeah, I know.
Life existed before. So it was fun to chat about them. And I actually ended up rereading my favorite out of it in preparation. So that was, I would say, the last one where I was like, okay, like, where's the next one? Give it to me. I need it now.
Yeah. I love that. And that's such an interesting subgenre. Like, I love a film noir like movie, but something about reading it is so cool. And it's a really fun subgenre for mystery, I think.
Yeah, I love it.
Sorry, I have a list on my phone because I always end up forgetting one. And I'm sitting here like, what was I going to talk about? I don't know. The caffeine hasn't quite kicked in yet, I suppose. So do you have any major binge watches, like shows that you will watch over and over again, or that I watched Bridgerton in a day, like that kind of thing?
Yes. I somehow have time to read and watch an excessive amount of television. Lockdown and no children give me a little bit of time.
Right.
And not being, I'm a corporate event planner, so normally I would be traveling and at events a lot. So I have all this new time in the evening that I'm not used to having. So currently binging Dawson's Creek. My fiance Eric in the back, say wave, has never seen Dawson's Creek. So
you're
this
making
is his
him
first
live through it with you.
He is the one requesting it now, not me. So that's been really, really fun. We always go back to Law and Order as well. And
the classic or one of the spin-offs?
No, classic. Need Lenny. I need Lenny. Need Jerry Orbach. Love him. And pretty much anything that gets popular comes on, I dive right into. The Undoing was so good with Nicole Kidman and I'm drawing a blank, Hugh Grant. And then I read the book and it was so different.
Oh, really? I haven't watched that one, but yeah, everyone was watching that for a bit.
So good. I liked the show better than the book. I don't know if it's because I read the book after. The Flight Attendant was another.
Ooh, that one's on my list. I think that will be right up my alley.
Like one of those, like literally could not stop, need it right now. Give me the next episode. And they teased it where the first, I don't know if this is, sometimes shows come out different in Canada. So when it first came out, the first 3 episodes were all out at once. So we got in this pattern and then it stopped. And then it became weekly.
No.
I'm like, no!
That's like my husband and I are watching WandaVision right now because who isn't, basically? And it's wild. But yeah, that show did it too, where I want to say the first 2 episodes came out together. And then since then, it's been once a week. And we're like, okay, but is it Friday yet? So we're just like,
I know. It's like the only way I can keep track of the days sometimes.
Right. It's the only reason that I remember what day of the week it is.
Yeah, I know. I need to check that one out. And then we're gonna watch we did The Night Stalker. True crime documentary. It's really good. Very creepy.
We've been watching a lot of true crime documentaries. Not sure what it is about them that are weirdly comforting right now, but
I agree. Maybe it's that there's worse things that could be happening.
Right. I don't
it's
true.
Laugh.
That might be it. But
I feel like I shouldn't laugh. I mean, this is real stuff, but it does. I think that's one of the reasons that I go to thrillers sometimes as a relaxation, is it takes you out. And yeah,
it's a good distraction, if nothing else.
Distraction.
Yeah.
And I'm a big true crime podcast listener too.
Yes. My Favorite Murder.
I haven't listened to that in a while. That was my gateway one.
Oh, it's so
and I've gone a little more serious now in mine. So a little more, less on the comedy, more on the like investigative stuff.
Sure.
So I'll have to go back and say hello to the old friends.
That was another book that was really fun. I actually haven't listened to that one in a while because, ironically enough, I am not listening to very many podcasts right now. Go figure. But yeah, that is, whenever I'm on a podcast like kick, that is a go-to one for me. They're just fun. Yeah, they feel like girlfriends. You know, like, oh, we're chatting, we're at brunch talking about these serial killers. The norm.
Yeah.
And then last question for you. Do you have any favorite like book to movie or book to TV show adaptations?
So, I mean, I did really love The Flight Attendant I'm doing, but I've Big Little Lies was really well done for me.
Yeah.
And the fact that they were able to make a second season out of when there's no book and have it feel within the same tone, I thought they did a fantastic job with that. I loved the show. I find I like book to TV more than book to movie. I think because there's more time to actually dive into things, where the movies sometimes feel a little lacking.
They can stick to it more.
Yeah. And then for completely different takes, It's funny you mentioned Emma. Clueless is the most brilliant adaptation of Emma ever.
It's so good.
It's so good. It is so good. It doesn't get old. I love all of my like the 10 Things I Hate About You. She's the Man is such a good 12th Night.
Oh my gosh, I haven't seen that one in so long.
We rewatched it over the holidays and making Eric watch all of my 2000s favorites, but
I love it. My husband and I watched Bring It On a few days ago.
Ooh, we have not done that one.
It's really fun. My book clubs I was talking about. So last month we read Jane Eyre, and at the end of the month we did like a virtual movie night where we watched the, I want to say 2011 version of it with Michael Fassbender and Mia. I cannot think of her last name, but Alice from the live action Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, I know exactly who you mean. I can picture her.
I can never remember her last name. I'm the worst. But we watched that one, and now I feel like with my Emma buddy read, we're gonna have to like fight it out to see if we watch the new adaptation from last year or if we watch Clueless, because they're both so good.
So good. Oh my gosh, now I want to watch Clueless.
I know, me too. Go downstairs after this, be like, hey Nick, I know what we're gonna watch today.
Have you read The Wife Upstairs?
No. Oh my gosh. So I was waiting until after I finished Jane Eyre to start that one. I have it on audio. But this last month, it was my first read of Jane Eyre. That's another one that we never read when I was younger. And so I'm right now listening to The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. And so as soon as I finish that, The Wife Upstairs is my next audiobook. But I haven't started it yet. I'm so excited.
It's good. You'll get more out of it too, having read Jane Eyre first. And Wide Sargasso Sea is another that is the perspective of Mrs. Rochester, whose name is escaping me right now.
Oh, really?
I haven't read Jane Eyre in a while. It's really short. And I loved it. I read it in university. But it's really interesting. So it's a totally different perspective if you're looking to add to the Jane Eyre inspired.
Absolutely. What was that one called?
Wide Sargasso Sea. Hold on. I think it's actually, I'm near my classic section. Like, oh, there we go. Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Ray. It's only, you can see all my, it's under 200 pages.
Love that.
Yeah.
I haven't read basically anything in the past week and a half, so I need some short reads to like catch back up on my reading goal for the month, so I don't end up having read 3 books. But yeah, I think that is about it. Do you have any other fun like bookish thoughts or books that you want to talk about?
I feel like I have all of these thoughts. No, it's been so fun to chat with you and read Canadian books, people. They're awesome.
Absolutely. All of the books, as always, that we are mentioning or talking about are going to be in the show notes.
Awesome.
So I will put an asterisk or something next to the ones that she said were Canadian lit if y'all want to listen to that. Support different types of authors. I think that's awesome.
I think you'll be surprised to see some of your favorite authors are actually Canadian. So
that's true. And you were talking about a lot of the time them being convinced to set the books elsewhere. Isn't that the case with The Simple Wild? Wasn't K.A. Tucker going to set that in Canada and then ended up moving it to Alaska?
I believe so. I'm not 100% sure. She is a fantastic Canadian author. She's joined our Canadian book enablers. We have a little group there, some chats, and she's just so lovely and so fun. So that's one. A lot of thrillers get moved into generic American places.
Sure.
But it definitely, I don't fault them for it at all. Getting something published is so hard.
Yeah.
And if that's what needs to happen to get their work out there. I totally get it. But hopefully we can move into people wanting to read about Canada.
Sounds interesting. I may have to worm my way into this book club.
You're totally welcome.
Well, do you want to tell people where they can follow you?
Absolutely. So I'm Arianna, Arianna.reads over on Instagram. And I would love to see you all there and talk books.
Her feed is beautiful. Definitely worth the follow.
Thank you.
And again, as always, her information will also be in those show notes. Go check her out, and she will be back next week also when we discuss Shipped, which I am quite excited about. And just really quickly, I will go ahead and wrap up the episode itself. So you can email me for the podcast anytime at thesamepagepod@gmail.com. If you have any books you think we should read for the podcast, any questions, collaboration requests, or if you've read any of our upcoming books and have discussion points you'd like included, send me an email. I'd love for you folks to be a part of those discussions with my guests and I. If you want to reach out to me separately, you can find my blog that hosts all of my tours, reviews, all that jazz at tacklingtbr.home.blog and on Instagram at tackling_TBR. And as for the podcast, you can find and connect with us on Instagram at The Same Page Podcast, on Twitter at The Same Page Pod, and you can find us on both Facebook and YouTube just by searching for The Same Page Podcast. And then the last thing that I always say, y'all are going to get real tired of hearing it, is if you are listening to the podcast and you like what you hear, thank you. If you were to decide to go to Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, wherever it is you're listening and subscribing, leaving a positive rating and even leaving your thoughts in a review, it would only take a minute or two, and it really helps get small shows introduced to more bookish folks. And with that, thank you again for joining me. I will see you next week.
I can't wait.
Yay.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Bye.
Bye.